Let's talk about death saves in 5e D&D. Of all the topics I've covered on this channel, this is likely the most controversial, or maybe that's not the right word. Contentious is probably better, because there are two general camps when it comes to death saves. Either you think they are fine and fair, or you think they are way too forgiving and make dying in 5e nearly impossible. I've yet to encounter someone who feels like death saves are too harsh. I recently created a social post and collected some thoughts from the community on 5e death saves. Couple that with the fact that on this channel I've reviewed many systems with varied rules for what happens when your character approaches death. So let's dig into the diverse opinions people have, and I'll give some recommendations and talk about homebrew and the systems I think do death best. First of all, I don't really have a problem with the way 5e does death saves. I don't think I agree when people say that it's nearly impossible to die in 5e. Hold on, don't get your pitchforks out just yet. Hear me out. I think it depends entirely on the table and the DM running it. Three big factors here. First is party composition. If your party is barbarian, fighter, wizard, and rogue, then they're not going to have a lot of healing between them. So if someone drops to 0 HP and the rest don't have a stock of healing potions, that could be bad news. But I ran one campaign where my three players were a paladin, cleric, and ranger, and they all had cure wounds, so yeah, it was tough to bring those suckers down. The second major factor is how the party works together as a team. Do you have the kind of players who will prioritize helping a fallen comrade? I think this comment is pretty cynical, but there's some truth to it. Because if you know it could take 3 full rounds for your downed teammate to actually die, then there is definitely less of a sense of urgency. It does lower the tension and drama of that current encounter, which is bad. Low stakes do not a good session make. More on this point later on in the video. Another sub-factor of that party composition is their tactics. Bob Worldbuilder says it's up to the players to balance combat encounters. If the PCs generally choose to prioritize keeping everyone upright, then it's gonna make combats proceed differently than if everyone is focused only on killing the monsters as quickly as possible. And the third major factor here, and probably the most important one, is the DM. Because I think a lot of time when people say it's too hard to die in 5e, what they really mean is that they've only played at tables where the DM never built deadly encounters or was just reluctant to kill PCs. Full disclosure here, I'm that second kind of DM. I'm reluctant to kill off PCs, especially when I know the players have put a lot of work into developing those characters. Yeah, I'm a big softie. If you've only played at tables where your DM was a pushover like me, then that's your main impression of D&D death and dying. Although, like this commenter, I've definitely had PC deaths in 5e at low, mid, and high levels. 5e can also be grueling and lethal. I've seen it firsthand. I've said before that if you want to increase the tension of falling to 0 HP, all you have to do is have the monsters hit PCs when they're already unconscious. It's pretty simple. If a monster has 2 attacks and the first one downs you, the second one automatically gives you either 1 or 2 failed death saving throws depending on if the attack is a crit or not. Or if the PC takes any kind of damage, it's a failed death save. One easy way to homebrew more lethality here is to say that when you get to 0 HP, you fall prone, and so you automatically take 1 point of bludgeoning damage from that faceplant, so you would always start with 1 failed death save. Smart monsters should know that PCs sometimes get back up, especially if they've seen anyone in that party use healing magic or potions. Unintelligent and hungry monsters might just start snacking on a PC as soon as they hit the ground. A monster taking a bite out of your leg would count as an attack. Another thing I love is when the monster immediately tries to drag that PC away, out of combat and back to its lair. Oh no, I'm fixing to be dropped into a cauldron and made into soup. That's scary. Hey, before we go on, could I get you to drop me a like and subscribe below? I would really appreciate it. Now let's get into some alternate takes on death saves. This one suggests the bleed out mechanic, which means when you drop to -1, you bleed 1 HP each round until you get to -10, then you're dead. Other PCs can intervene, but otherwise you bleed out in 10 rounds. I've seen other RPGs that do this in 1d4 rounds, which I like better, because 10 rounds is a long time to lay there on the battlefield doing almost nothing. This commenter also suggests giving exhaustion as a penalty, which I do like. One thing that really bothers me about 5e death saves is that there is no in-game consequence for falling unconscious and then popping back up. The enemy's blade stabs into your heart and you fall, blood gushing out. Then the cleric hits you with healing word from 30 feet away, and next turn you're back on your feet swinging your sword like nothing happened. I mean, I understand mechanically why it works this way, because they want to avoid giving you penalties that create a death spiral. But it feels like there should be something. Like one round of being under the effect of the slow spell when you're brought back, kind of like how Baldur's Gate 3 does it, or a level of exhaustion or something. Coming back from 0 HP needs more gravity to give the situation more tension, I think. One complaint about death saves is that it gives you little to do on your turn. I don't really think this is a problem because 1, there's a good amount of drama in rolling that d20 to find out if you pass or fail. Sure, no one likes having their action taken away from them on a turn, but, well, you should have thought of that before you ran out of hit points, right? Also, the second thing here is that a good DM can make that player's turn still narratively satisfying. A good DM can give that player a quick spotlight with a near-death roleplay moment. Maybe the cleric's deity visits them as they're bleeding out. Maybe the rogue gets a vision of their past mistakes. Maybe the fighter has a moment to roleplay about the people from their sacked village that they failed to avenge. Just be careful not to make these vignettes go on for too long, or it will kill the pacing of the combat encounter. Something as simple as asking the player what images are going through your paladin's unconscious mind right now as she's sprawled out on the battlefield. Give them a moment to be a part of the story, instead of just rolling dice and moving on. Here's another common complaint about death saves, that once you level up high enough to get Revivify and Raise Dead, that it becomes literally impossible to kill a PC. I would counter by saying the way you mitigate this in your campaign is simply by making diamonds rare and difficult to acquire. You don't have to let the PCs have whatever spell components they want whenever they want them. In Daggerheart, there's a resurrection ability a healer can get, but the game makes it clear you can use it once and never again, like never, ever again. I did a similar thing to this in a D&D campaign where a PC died, then they had to go on a quest to take that dead PC to a particular temple. I told the party that this was the only place where someone could be brought back. They asked for help to raise the PC there, then after I had an earthquake destroy the temple. It was a pretty clear message to the players, you got this one do-over and that's it. You're on your own now. Another way to spice up death saves is to use the rolling in secret method. This has probably been around forever, but I first heard it suggested by DM and beefy human Johnny Stanton. A couple of commenters on my post also mentioned this. But the secret method means the DM rolls the death saves for the PC behind the screen. Maybe the DM shares that info with the involved player, or maybe it's 100% secret and no one knows but the DM. Now the rest of the table has no idea how close to death that PC is. I adore this option because it certainly seems more realistic, and when you're looking to add drama and tension for the whole table, this is a winner. This is better than bleeding out in 10 rounds or dying in 1d4 rounds. Or imagine if you combined secret death saves with the 1d4 rounds method. Then anyone going down immediately becomes a crisis situation for the whole party. Finally, I want to talk about Daggerheart, because I do agree with the commenter that their system for death saves is superior to 5e. While I don't love everything about Daggerheart, I think they got this one element very right. Daggerheart has a clever and cinematic way of handling what happens when you drop to 0 HP. You get a choice of 3 death moves. You can 1. Accept death and go out in a blaze of glory, letting your PC have one last action that is an automatic success. You can also cheat death and face the consequences, which is you go temporarily unconscious and take a scar, which means you permanently lose some resources and then get to determine how you are actually scarred going forward. Or the third death move is called Risk It All, where you make a single roll of the dice to decide your fate. To me, these are the best of all worlds because it's faster, more narrative, and the player has a choice. Since TTRPGs are largely about making choices, this seems fitting. Imagine this, your low-level PC goes down when swarmed by goblins. The DM says, okay, here are your options. You can accept permanent death, but your fighter will get one last burst of energy and will slash through the goblins surrounding you, which will save the lives of everyone else in the party. Or you can survive, but you're going to lose your left arm, which means no dual wielding, no greatsword, and no shield for the rest of the campaign. Or you can roll a single d20, and we'll see what fate has in store for your character. Man, what a juicy and difficult choice to make. Doesn't that sound cinematic? Okay, so I feel like I've rambled on enough about death saves. Feel free to wage this debate down in the comments, but please be civil. Most of you are lovely people, and I love you for still being here at the end of this video when the rest have already clicked away to a different video. You're the real hero. Until next time, this is GM Jim. Now go out there and make your life and death matter.